everybody. Welcome back to the Canberra Football Show, episode 21, NPL2 preview. I have Russ and Michael with me, but before we get into the NPL2 preview, a congratulations to Russ on making his big A-League debut, commentating with Mark Bosnich of all people.
Yeah, thanks very much, Matt. It was a bit of a surprise, to be honest. I got a call up yesterday morning. Adam Peacock was sick. Had a phone call about 9:30 asking me if I could get up to Wollongong with absolutely no prep whatsoever. To be fair, I hadn't watched Wellington or Macarthur much at all this season. So it was a fly by the seat of the pants kind of thing. Got there and just tried to wing it as best I could. And I think it went pretty okay. And it was a reasonable match to watch, bit of a tactical battle, but it was nice to finally get an A-League game under my belt. And it was, hopefully I can do some more. And I dropped you in it because you had to go and do Belconnen and Bell North.
I guess going off that, Russ, more so along the sort of lines of being able to not only have the opportunity to commentate your first A-League game, but to do it alongside someone like Mark Bosnich, who we all know, who played for Australia at international level as a fantastic goalkeeper. He's got experience in the Premier League, and he's been involved in the A-League media-wise for a while now. I guess I'm curious to gather your thoughts on what it was like to commentate a game alongside a personality like that in Australian football.
Yeah, well, fortunately, I've met Mark a few times before in terms of when I was media managing at Canberra Stadium for Asian Cup. He was down for a few games for Socceroos, and when I was assisting with the Socceroos up in Sydney for Asian Cup and that kind of thing, and Socceroos matches, he's been there. So I've met him a few times before when he was commentating alongside Simon Hill and those kind of people. So it wasn't as if I didn't know him in the first instance, and he knew me as well, which was good, which made the rapport nice and easy. But I think with that instance, I just tried to make sure that he was on top of all the analysis and he knows the game inside out. So from my point of view, I was left to just concentrate on calling the players, describing the action and posing him the odd question. And he's top notch. He's done it with so many people before in the past. As a Manchester United fan myself, I remember him being in goal for United when they won the World Club Championship, as it was the Intercontinental Cup in 1999 against Palmeiras. And he made huge amount of astonishing saves in that game. And yeah, to sit alongside him was an absolute privilege, to be honest, especially in a game where we could call together. And I think he enjoyed it as well. And I enjoyed every minute of it.
100%. And before Michael starts with the first club, your social media has also been off the hook.
Oh, it's been crazy. I need a social media manager. Now, though, I'd like to thank to everybody in the Canberra football community, friends and family who took the time out to send me messages of good luck before the match and afterwards as well. To be honest, when I sat there, it was a little bit nervous for the first half an hour before kickoff when we went on air and I was waiting for my chance to come on. So flicking through those messages of good luck and from my friends and family really kind of just calmed me down a bit and got me in the zone to do as best a call as I could at the time.
No, absolutely. It was, and once again, I guess just before we move on, just congratulations on that experience and the reception that you've received, because you did an exceptional job and made Canberra football proud. So well done on that, Russ.
Well, I've got back to reality this week. I've got Canberra Croatia versus Queanbeyan on Wednesday in the FA Cup, and then down to Ipan Park for Brindabella Blues against Wagga City Wanderers. And from
back into it.
From Mark Bosnich, I go to Frank Asia on Wednesday and Mitch Stevens on Thursday. So some football knowledge locally.
To make them feel better, you're going with from Bosnich to us. So.
Well, that's true. I mean, it's a step up.
Yeah, I would say so.
The coffee's definitely better here.
All right, let's get into it, guys. Well, we've got ANU, the first team that we're previewing for the NPL2 upcoming season in 2021. They've got a new coach in Adam Condipodero. In 2020, they obviously just missed out on the top four last season, finishing in fifth. Russ, can you give us some ins and outs or the activity that's transpired at ANU coming into this new season?
Yeah, they've, as per usual, they've got some decent players that have come in. They're a strong side. They've got Queanbeyan that's come up from State League. He was supposed to come up last year, and he's back in the frame as well. Nice little midfielder they've got there. Jake Bradley's back from sabbatical. Sam Carter's has come back in as well, so he's a good addition to the squad. And Carl Hines comes in from Weston Molonglo to add a little bit of spice to the attack as well. But I'm looking forward to seeing Liam Neeson from the UC Stars, just because the name he's got. It's fantastic. There's so many puns we can use around that. I'm sure he's heard them all before. But he scored goals in pre-season as well. He scored against Tuggeranong. He scored against West Canberra Wanderers in their pre-season matches. So they look like they're in good form in pre-season. They've not won a huge amount of games, but they've looked really good against Tuggeranong. In parts, they look very good against Monero Panthers, and they absolutely spanked West Canberra Wanderers at Woden, at Mawson, I should say. But then they had the surprise of losing in the cup to O'Connor Knights. So, they would be disappointed that happened. But as per usual, we say this each year. We did this last year with ANU. They're perennial title challenges in that division. Whether they want to go up is a different story. I hear rumours that they perhaps don't want to play Premier League. I don't believe that for a minute. I think everybody wants to play Premier League football. But you know how the Canberra rumour mill goes. So I'm looking forward to it. They have lost Andrew Manley. He's taken a sabbatical and a couple of others as well. But they'll still be a very strong outfit.
Most definitely. I guess before I delve into any more sort of thoughts and information in regards to ANU, Matt, do you have any thoughts on ANU for this season?
Yeah, I've met and had a couple of chats with Adam. He's been involved with the ANU system for a while. He took a sabbatical last year, didn't coach, but he did coach the under-20s, which is the 23s now. Before that, he's done very well in that system, and it sort of follows that sort of ethos that ANU have. They always like to bring through the players that they have or their students that they have, and then also the coaches. So I know Adam's been involved with them for a while. He's been waiting for this top gig, and good luck to him because he's been a crucial part of the ANU setup for a while now. And I think, I'm sure you'll touch on this more, Michael, but I think it's important for ANU to sort of get in a good start because they haven't, like Russ said, they haven't exactly done too well in friendlies in terms of results. And last year they didn't start too well, which ended up costing them. But that was obviously a shortened season. But I think it's important for them to get in a good start if they're going to challenge for the top four this year, because we all know that we all know they're one of the best technical teams in the comp. Even last year when they didn't make the top four, whenever they turned it on, they really turned it on. I understood what Russ was talking about from what he's seen in the past couple of years at ANU. Yeah,
most definitely. And I guess just to go off that a little bit further, that they've been a perennial side in this NPL2, formatted competition. They've always, been in and amongst the top four. They've won, numerous titles over the last, 5-10 years. So to see them fall out of the top four last season was obviously a bit of a shock, but at the same time, you couldn't read into it too much just based on the fact that it was a shortened season, like we're going to touch on, a lot of the times in these previews. And, it took them, having to lose, like you mentioned before, Matt, how they had that poor start to the season, losing 3 of their first 4, which cost them a finals berth. But they'll be looking to obviously bounce back this season. They've got a full season to prepare for and play football. We can expect them to obviously be in that top 4 come the end of the season, and we all know what they're like around finals time. They just know how to get it done. So, and like Russ touched on, I think we can't really put too much onus on the rumours about them not wanting to be promoted to NPL1, because I'm sure that's the goal of every side in the NPL2 is to get that promotion and play in the premier competition, which is NPL1. So
I look at some of their players. They've got like Chase Deans, Rowan Peterkin, Max Mottle in their forward line. They're sensational players. And it was only 2 seasons ago, of course, I was lucky enough to commentate on the NPL2 grand final where they gave O'Connor a bit of a hammering. It was 5-1 and they played superbly well that day. That side wouldn't have been out of place in NPL1. And on Adam Contepadero, he's probably the least experienced coach in NPL2 this season. It's his first season and he's got a lot of experience coming up against. We'll talk about the coaches of the other teams a bit later on, but there's a wealth of experience amongst that league. With that becoming new, it becomes, strengths and weaknesses. Because it's your first season, you bring in lots of new ideas as well, but you're coming up against seasoned campaigners. I happen to think Adam will do really well. He's very tactically astute, really nice lad with it as well, and I wish him all the best.
Absolutely. Matt, do you want to move on to our next club, unless you have any final thoughts?
Yep. I just wanted to quickly say another reason why I think it's important for them to get a big start is because as we're going to mention quite a bit in this preview, a lot of these sides have strengthened quite a bit, and I think it's going to be probably an even more competitive competition than last year. So for that's why I think they should. That's why I think they're going to be raring to go and get a really good start in comparing to last season, despite the differences. Now, let's move on to the Brindabella Blues. We've got Zoran Glavnic in charge for his second season at the club. They finished 8th place. Remember, they had 9 teams last year. Oh, and we also forgot to mention that there is only 8 teams this year in the NPL 2 competition, not 9. Narrabundah not rejoining the competition.
What happened to the bye?
Oh, yeah, that is true. We did have 10 teams.
They were great last year. Remember, we had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
They finished second last in that one point. Yeah. No, remember there was that thing in the issue on the Capital Football ladder for a bit.
Good point.
And so, in terms of Zoran, like I said, entering into his second season, Brindabella didn't have the best of times last season. However, whenever they did sort of get a victory, like that at the end of the season, had a really good victory against Yoogali. They played well in spurts, and Zoran will be the first one to tell you that they weren't able to turn it on for 90 minutes, which was what is key to getting the majority of the results that you can. And when I had a chat to him in preseason, he also mentioned that he wanted to improve defensively because he said they leaked a lot of cheap goals, a lot of scrappy goals that could have been avoided. So that's another aspect that he's really tried to work on in the preseason. And I think just another year of chemistry building together, and another year of working under Zoran. I think Brindabella Blues will do better than people give them credit for.
I'm looking forward to seeing them this week. I've got them on Thursday, like we said, in the FFA Cup game against Wagga City Wanderers. That'll be a good test of their credentials and where they're at the moment. In pre-season, they did ship 15 goals in 4 games, but to be fair, Zoran gave them a fairly tough schedule. They played Granville Range, Gungahlin United, Prospect United, and Wollongong United. So 4 really tough games to get them in the mood for NPL 2. And to their credit, they scored 5 goals as well. They have got young Curtis Schaefer up front. He's got bags of pace, and he seems to be getting better each year when he's not running the line in his secondary job as an assistant referee. And they brought in a couple of good young players as well. Dennis Misic has come back from a sabbatical, and he scored in pre-season too. They've lost a couple as well, as everyone does in this division. There's a fair bit of movement in NPL 2 as there is in NPL 1, because we've mentioned Canberra being such a small place in the past. And of course, wages in this division aren't as good as they are elsewhere. But I think they'll be a better side than they were last year. I think Zoran having a second bite of the cherry again, and he's bolstered his ranks, and he's brought a fair few through from his under-18s. And when you bring those youngsters through, as we've seen in the past, they either sink or swim, but they tend to have no fear.
And with that, Brindabella also in the NPL Youth 1, if I'm not mistaken, in the Youth League. So they, not just that, they're going to have a better what's the word for it? They're going to have a better selection of youth players than they probably would have previously.
They'll have a bigger squad as well, which will help things. When you've got youth players that are really keen to come in and make their mark at NPL 2 level, it makes a big difference when you can call on that ranks of youth players that have been playing at reasonable level as well to come in and bolster your squad.
Most definitely. I think just to go off that, I think we always talk about how important it is to have a strong youth system in place in order for, the odd occurrence where your first grade squad can go through, injuries or players having commitments that affect their footballing careers, and that gives youngsters a chance, or gives the coach the opportunity to look down the pecking order at the youth ranks to give players a chance to shine at a higher level. And we can obviously expect Brindabella Blues to do that this season. I think Zoran will be keeping a close eye on the youth ranks, and especially if, like how there is in, most seasons, the squads are going to go through their turbulent times with injuries and, mainly just injuries, I should say. And like I mentioned before about commitments, that might get in the way of football. There is that opportunity to look down the list at your youth players, and you always want to be promoting youth. We always talk about it in Canberra, how important it is to bring up the youth and give them that exposure to, higher leagues and more difficult competition for these youngsters to, help them develop at a younger age to be playing against, really good teams and premier competition. So, I think we can expect some youngsters to be promoted throughout the season for Brindabella. There'll be a tough outfit, and I'm sure they'll look to improve on their 8th place last season.
And they could give themselves a big boost if they can get a result on Thursday night against Wagga in the FFA Cup. That's a good momentum boost for them as well heading into the season, a place in the last 8 of the FFA Cup.
All right,
absolutely.
Club, if you don't have any last words.
No. I'm ready to move on. So we've got the Canberra White Eagles with Coach Steve Forshaw at the helm again. In the 2020 season last year, they finished 4th. And in the finals, they lost that agonizingly semi-final to Yoogali, 3-2. So it was a cracking game there in the semi-final. Russ, before we get into White Eagles a little bit further, any significant ins or outs concerning White Eagles?
There's a few. There's been a bit of a sea change at the Eagles this year. They were struggling for numbers till the weekend in their 23s, and they picked up 4 or 5 new players, I understand, on the weekend for their under-23 setup, which is going to make them a bit stronger this year. They brought players in like Ed McCarthy from Monero Panthers, Osman Daramy as well, Ben Townsley-Mann's come in, Caleb Cullen-Rua. So they've brought some real quality into that squad, into a team that's pretty strong anyway. They generally make the finals. They generally make the top 4. I think it was only 2017 in the last 4 or 5 years that they haven't made the finals. They're very, very good. They're always good. Struggled in pre-season for goals. They've only got 4 in 5 matches, which it hasn't been the best return for them. Ed McCarthy's bagged a couple for them. Ben Townsley's been on the mark as well. But they've, in fairness to them as well, they've played some tough opposition, much like Brindabella. They went up against Monero, Tuggeranong and Canberra Olympic in adversary encounters, and Albion Park White Eagles. So they perhaps weren't expected to win too many of them. Where they would have been disappointed, I believe, would have been that FFA Cup exit to Bell North. They were undone by a couple of goals there in a game that they dominated in terms of possession and territory and just couldn't find something in that final third. I speak to Steve Forshaw a lot, as you're probably aware. He co-commentates with me a fair bit, and he was with me on Saturday for the Charity Shield. And yeah, he's well aware of what they've got to do to improve and to get better. And I think it's in that final third where he's got a few worries at the moment, but I've no doubt that they'll figure something out before the season starts. Too much quality in the group, with Dejan Santrak particularly outstanding, wonderful footballer, getting on a bit now, he won't mind us saying, but still runs the midfield and pulls the strings, and he's a delight to watch. And they've got some really good footballers, and again, another good team that we're looking forward to, and they'll be pushing for the top 4 and they'll be pushing for promotion.
Yeah, they most certainly will. Obviously, you mentioned there that you've been in, you've known Steve Forshaw for a while. Obviously, he's at the helm. He, just like Graham Plath, the former coach, he has a lot of NPL 1 experience. Most recently being in charge of at Belconnen United. Obviously, Forshaw is best known for his FFA Cup run with Tuggeranong to the round of 16 in 2014, as sure Canberrans are all aware when we cast our minds back to famous FFA Cup runs. Obviously, you mentioned the changes to the squad. They've made some good additions as well, like you mentioned, Russ. I think, like ANU, they're a constant side in that top 4. We consider them a top 4 side. They're a solid side. They play good enough football. They're always at the higher end of the table, and certainly when it comes to looking to clinch a grand final berth or the title as well. They're a very good team, and it's hard to judge them in terms of their preseason form. I mean, like you mentioned there, they've had a few difficult results, but with that, they've had some very tough games, and they let a 2-goal lead slip against Tuggeranong United and were eliminated from the FFA Cup by Bell North. Sorry, like you mentioned, but they've got quality in abundance. You touched on Dejan Santrak there. He's been at White Eagles, for a while, ever since moving on from Cooma Tigers. So they'll be a very good side this season. We can always expect them to be a good side, especially with the new additions. Matt, do you have any thoughts on White Eagles this season?
Yeah, I saw them in preseason against Tuggeranong. I think I saw you there as well.
Yeah, we were there, yeah.
And I was only able to catch the first half, and they were winning. I think it was 2-0, and they ended up losing 3-2. But I thought they actually did quite well in that first half, and I think, and they did look like a bit of a younger outfit as well. There's they've spiced things up a little bit in that regard. So I'm just intrigued to see how they go with Steve Forshaw at the helm, with because there's going to be a lot of ambitions this year, especially with promotion. Them, White Eagles, along with O'Connor and Queanbeyan, those three are going to be the ones that I think are going to be the most ambitious for the promotion. Not that everyone doesn't want to make promotion, but I think you just with the boards and with the moves they've made, I think those three are going to be the ones where, let's just leave it this way. This is probably a better way to put it. They're probably the most vocal about wanting to make the promotion.
Yeah, we can't really read too much into preseason. That game with Tuggeranong, they had a brand new outfit out in the first half. They were undone by 3 set pieces in the second half. And the game I saw most of that first half like you did. And I saw the game against Monero Panthers. Again, they were undone by a set piece in that one as well. So they're very avoidable goals. That FFA Cup run you mentioned, Michael, was my one and only half season of assistant coaching, where I was alongside Steve Forshaw there, and I sat through many of his team talks and many of his tactical analysis of opposition. And he's one of the coaches in Canberra, and we're lucky to have a fair few of them that have got a real astute tactical brain. Pleasure to talk to. If you ever get the chance to sit down over a coffee and talk football with Steve, you won't regret it. I think they're going to do very well this season. Like I say, preseason's not been great, but preseason's preseason. We mentioned that. It gives us a guide to talk about, but realistically, all that matters is 3:00 on that first Saturday.
Absolutely. I guess sort of just to go off that a bit more, Russ, in terms of having a coach like Forshaw at White Eagles in the NPL2, and we talk about the wealth of experience that is coming through with coaches at this level, not even just at the NPL1 level now, but we're talking about NPL2, which we'll touch on soon with Queanbeyan City as well, with Gabby Wilk, who obviously used to coach in the NPL1. But can you just speak a little bit about how good it is just for those two premier competitions here in Canberra, the NPL1 and NPL2, having not only just all these experienced coaches in the NPL1 competition, but that now is spread across into NPL2, where the narrative obviously plays into it of promotion for these NPL2 clubs, and they want to assemble good teams and good coaches in order to make that push so that they can play in the NPL1 competitions as well. Can you just talk a little bit about the spread of coaches that we've got now across the two competitions?
Well, staying on Forshaw just for the second to start with then. I mean, he decided to take a sabbatical after he left Balcony United under not the best of circumstances. And I think that year off really refreshed him. And he wouldn't have just taken any job to come back. I think it took a special kind of club to make him reverse that decision and come out of retirement, if you like. And I think he's found his passion back again. And I think that's a good outfit for him to be involved in. Obviously, there's a lot of politics behind the scene, but there are at these all these clubs that we have. But Steve's a kind of bloke that can, negotiate that kind of path. And I think they're very ambitious, and you've seen that ambition across all these clubs that have appointed coaches that have done it at the top grades. Brindabella Blues with Zoran, he's been a Premier League coach. Queanbeyan City, we talk O'Connor Knights later on with Miro. Trininic, he's been there as well and done it at Canberra, Croatia. So they've all got huge amounts of experience, and it brings a whole new dimension to the competition at that level as well. And that's not to decry any of the younger coaches that are coming through. We're seeing some fantastic ones. Look at Michael Zukoski on the weekend for Balcony United in the Women's Charity Shield. They put one over Nick Brosnich, another great young coach that's coming through. So we've got some fantastic coaches in Canberra. We've got some fantastic football people in total. And I think we'll see in the NPL2 this year, clubs will be a lot better organised, a lot better tactically aware, because they've got these guys in charge, and it's going to make for a much better competition.
100%. All right. Let's move on to O'Connor Knights. Now, O'Connor Knights, like you said, coached by Miro Trininic, and they came 6th last season. They, along with ANU, we mentioned that before, but they got off to a poor start to begin with. And however, they will be the first ones to tell you that they sort of treated the season like a longer preseason. I think Alex said that in his interview with me. They they wouldn't have shied back from saying that. However, O'Connor did when they near the end of the season, when they near the end, they ended up getting some good wins, and you saw why everyone talks about O'Connor Knights in such high regard. When it comes to the way they play. And in terms of the way they play, I did see them a bit in pre-season. I saw them. I saw the first half against Monaro in the FA Cup, and I also saw them against Gungahlin. Now I know they shipped goals in both those matches. However, I felt they were quite they set up quite well in terms of defensively, and they broke very quickly. But the way they defended, and for the long periods that they did defend, I thought they showed that they were tactically flexible, which will be very key for them, I think, against some of the bigger sides, especially Queanbeyan City, who I think will be a more attacking side this season than a lot of the teams in the comp. And we all know Yoogali as well are probably one of the most attacking sides in the comp. So I think that gives them the tactical flexibility that they might not have had last year when they shipped quite a few goals to the likes of Yoogali and some of the other sides. So I think they are pretty well set up in terms of their tactical flexibility. So before we delve in more into O'Connor Knights, Russ, what are some of the key ins and outs that you have there?
Well, the list that we've got includes people with plenty of Premier League experience, with Jason Denham, Liam Walsh, Mitch Steenberg, and David McCarron, Jake Wills and Daniel Roberts, to name just a few. It's a fantastic looking squad that they've got there. We know that we did this podcast, what would have been 12 months ago, maybe a bit longer now, when we were talking about NPL2, and promotion was on the cards back in before COVID hit, and O'Connor were building for that. And I think of all the teams that were hurt by COVID coming in, and everyone will have their own opinion, I think O'Connor probably felt it the most. They were really geared up and excited to push for promotion last year. And when it didn't happen, their players were deflated, their board was deflated. I think it took an awful lot out of them. And we saw that in their results. As you said, Alex, Trininic mentioned it was an extended preseason for them. There wasn't anything to play for. This is a team of winners. It's a team of players that want to win football matches. I must mention Josip Jadric, otherwise he'll never talk to me again. He's a quality player, though, Josip, and when they get him fit, he's a huge asset to their team. His pace is phenomenal. I once saw him score something like 10 goals in a game against Monero in a youth and under 23s match, I think it might have been, or something ridiculous. And he went in goal for the last 15 minutes or so. And he's got such quality. If they can keep him fit, he's had his injury problems, but he's a huge part as well, because in transition, he's hard to catch. And they're building for this title. They're a real threat. We saw in the FFA Cup, they came from 1 down to beat ANU. They led Monero Panthers on the weekend for large swathes of the game until Martin Zygmunt was sent off, and they blew up in the last 15 minutes against a quality Monero Panthers outfit. So that's no disgrace for them. But for large parts of that, they were in the match and holding out against a side that we tipped last week to be in the top 3 or 4 in the Premier League. So if we're not saying that O'Connor Knights are going to be in the top 4, I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot.
Absolutely. I think, I think the biggest takeaway for this O'Connor Knights team coming into the 2021 season is the fact that, like we've touched on, they brought in a lot of players. They invested in bringing in quality players in order to make that push to NPL 1. And then when COVID got in the way, and that sort of got in the way and disrupted their plans of making that a reality, it did shoot them in the foot. And you could tell that throughout the shortened season last year. They were kind of just playing games, for the sake of it, in hope that they can prepare better for 2021, which is the case now. And they won't have that shortened season as an excuse this time around. They've got the quality there from last year that didn't work out. But now that they've got more players that have come in to the playing group, considering that promotion is on the line this time as well, it's essentially their second bite of the cherry, and it's something that they'll want to capitalize most definitely. And it's not going to be an easy path for them to, encapsulate that NPL 1 competition berth. They've got some quality sides that will be looking to do the same, but they've got the quality there. It'll just be interesting to see how they match up against the likes of White Eagles, ANU, Queanbeyan, Yoogali, and just to name a few. But the NPL2 competition is very there's a lot of depth there. So we'll see how they perform, but they'll be definitely looking to capture promotion this season now that it's actually on the table.
100%. I'll just say one last thing before we move on. Their captain Dylan DeMontis tore his other meniscus and is out for the season. So that's a big loss for them. Best of luck to him in his surgery. So that's a bit of leadership gone. But in saying that, though, it seemed like we've all said, they've built quite a side, and I was quite impressed when I saw them in preseason in terms of their defensive ability. And we all know their attacking ability. You've mentioned it there. So I'm intrigued to see how O'Connor Knights go this season. I'm sure they'll definitely not only be pushing for the top four, but be pushing for that first place for promotion. Any last words, Russ, before we move on to Queanbeyan?
No, I think you've summed it up quite well there. I think they're going to be one of the sides that are really in contention. There's a lot of them in this division. No one's going to think that they're not going to make that top four and push for promotion. I think we're going to be some massively intriguing battles, and the clashes between O'Connor v Queanbeyan and the ANUs, like you mentioned, are going to be huge.
Most definitely. And moving on now to Queanbeyan City with coach Gabby Wilk at the helm in the NPL2 competition. Last season, they finished second in the table, where then in the finals, they lost in the semis to Wagga City 2-1. Russ, what are the key additions or departures at Queanbeyan City? We mentioned it in the NPL 1 preview. Yeah, they brought in the entire
Kuma Tigers, mate. That sums it up. Last year's NPL 1 Kuma Tigers team have all up ship and gone to Queanbeyan. And whilst we joke, there is a lot. I mean, let's have a think. Mark Shields, Michael Kitta, Goran Josefovsky, Alex Olorigby, Hussein Farej. And of course, that doesn't add Michael Adams to the mix, Dean Tomeski. There's some great players that they brought in, and Gabby Wilk is well known for being able to do that. He's got a squad of, I won't say veteran, but experienced footballers that know what to do at the top level, know how to win football matches. As with most Gabby sides, massively attack-minded. They score a load, they concede a load. They've scored 19 in pre-season and conceded 17 in 7 matches. They've been really busy. And I think what summed them up was a trip to Coniston where they lost 6-5. They were missing a few players on that day. But that just goes to show what quality they have. Michael Adams got a hat-trick there. Mark Shields started the season at a house on fire. He scored 7 goals in the first 3 games he played, and he was looking super fit. He's got himself a little ankle injury at the moment. I think he'll be over very shortly. He should be fit for Wednesday. But he's looking fitter than I've seen him in a long time. They've added some South American talent into there as well. They've got young Joda Gonzalez over from Belconnen United. He's only a teenager, but he's built like a huge human as well. So he's going to be a massive asset to them. And they've just signed Emmanuel Ponce from, I think that's how you pronounce it, from Hawkesbury in NPL 4. He was the player of the year up there in NPL 4, New South Wales. Seen him a couple of times in pre-season. He's got a silky touch and he's got some awareness around him. So if they can, get him into that side and combine him with some of the other players they've got, not to mention the experience that Goran Josefovsky brings to that outfit as well. It's just an incredible side. As long as they don't put Nick Noveski on the goal line, which I saw them do in pre-season. He's not the tallest man in the world. And I did have a laugh with him about why they decided to put him on the post for free kicks. But it was, and you look at that. And I want to mention Stephen Serbanowski as well. He floats around in and around the firsts and reserves, and of all the finishers they've got, he's probably the most natural. He strikes the ball so well. He's very languid. Reminds me when he plays of someone like Dimitar Berbatov, just strolls around the park and he's got that touch of ability. And when they get a free kick, he's absolutely deadly. So keep an eye out for him making some cameo appearances as well. It'd be well worth your time.
I think before I go on, Matt, are we going to get the phone or do we want to leave it?
That's not my phone.
That's your phone.
That's your phone this time.
It's mine.
For once, it's not me. And the phone did ring a couple of times before we started. So I was worried that would be me today.
It's probably
that's not me.
It's probably Nick Noveski having a word.
Yeah,
well, it's not.
It's none of us, mate.
So I don't know what that is.
There's a phantom phone ringing in the background.
Fair to phone.
Oh, that's strange, isn't it?
It might have been Gabby Wilk wanting to have a word.
Yeah, maybe.
So,
I think just to go into that a bit more, you talk about all the additions that they've made, Russ, to the squad this season at Queanbeyan. I think the inclusion of Gabby and Jair Wilk to the coaching side of things makes the team very ambitious going into the season. There's obviously a lot of buzz around them this season, especially from their own supporting base as well, and rightfully so. I mean, if you've been to a Queanbeyan City game before, the fans are out in full force and make their voices known. That's for sure. Whenever you go and watch Queanbeyan City play a football match, so they actually had a very good, like I mentioned at the top of the preview with them. They had a good season last year under Luca Oida, where they just missed out on a grand final position in the final 15 minutes against Wagga City Wanderers in the semis there. And it's going to be interesting to see the transition for Gabby and his star-studded lineup. They're training 3 days a week with clear promotion ambitions. You don't train three times a week for no reason. So they'll be looking to make that leap for sure.
They brought in a strength and conditioning coordinator as well to get them through this first part of the season to get those guys up to fitness as well. But you mentioned it there. They weren't far away last season, and they've just improved the squad no end, and they've kept the core of the players that got them there last year. Matty Ryan at centre-back as well is a huge part of that football team. He leads by example as well, one of the best defenders outside of the NPL 1 competition. And I think they're just going to push, and they'll be really entertaining to watch. There'll be plenty of goals. And they'll be worth a look. And I think, if you get the chance to come and see them on Wednesday or tune into Bar TV, they'll give Canberra Croatia a good shake as well. I think they go into that one. Canberra Croatia probably a little bit nervous.
Yeah, look, I've said it before, but I was very, very impressed with Queanbeyan City last year under Luca Oida. I thought they were terrific. They were very good defensively as well. And yeah, like Michael, like you mentioned there, they weren't very far away from making that making that final or just going to penalties.
3 points off top spot, I think, at the end of the day as well.
And that as well. So I was very impressed with the last season. So I'm intrigued to see the transition from Oida to Gabby. Obviously, we all know Gabby's not only is he a attack-minded coach, he's a very big personality as well. Him and Jair. So it's going to be, and he knows all those players well that he brought in. Mark Shields, of course, we've known him. He's been around for years, always scoring a lot of goals. He's going to be key for them. And you mentioned the supporter base. I think that's going to be key as well. I think they're probably going to be one of the best supported clubs in either competition, whether it's the NPLW or the NPL 1 this season. I've talked to a few of the 3 of the under 23s players, and that are always there for the matches and they always watch. And just in general, I've talked to a lot of people who either sponsor the club or always go to their matches. And there's a massive buzz around Queanbeyan City. I would say it's probably the biggest buzz out of any of the supporter bases in Canberra this season. So I'm just intrigued to see how they go, because there's a massive buzz about them this season. I cannot stress that enough.
I think you've nailed it, mate. I think the most important thing you mentioned there, it's just great for football in Canberra to have Gabby and Jair back doing what they do best, which is coaching football teams. And 2 great personalities that we missed in the Canberra football region. Gabby obviously went back to South America, to Argentina, to coach over there, and COVID brought him back. And whilst that wasn't ideal from him, from our point of view and a purely selfish point of view, wonderful to see him back in amongst the football fraternity of Canberra.
Absolutely. Matt, we ready to move on?
Yeah, 100%. So on from... I mentioned the semi-final that Queanbeyan were in. They were playing Wagga City Wanderers in that semi-final, who were the champions last year under coach Michael Babbage. He's stepped down, and now they have David Leonard in charge, who was the coach of the under 23s that also won their title against ANU on that same day. Like I said, they were champions last year. Now, they impressed quite a bit throughout the season last year. They started the season with a bit of a statement of intent when they beat ANU at home, and they were just for me, they were probably the most tactically flexible side out of any of the competitions last year. They could do both sides of the ball, they could defend very well, and they broke very quick on the counter, and they could also attack when need be. Just depended depended on what game it required it, and we saw that in the final as well against Yoogali. They were able to defend, they were able to attack when they needed something. When Yoogali took the lead, they were able to get it. So I'm intrigued to see how the transition goes from Babbage to Leonard. But at the end of the day, Leonard does know the players. He's been around for a while. He's been around for a couple of years, and like Russ is about to touch upon now with some of the new signings coming in, quite a few of the under-23s players. So he knows them best in that regard. So what are some of the key ins and outs from Wagga, Russ?
Well, they've had a massive turnover as you'd expected. The side we're seeing this year is not the side that got to the grand final last year. And that's the nature of the beast, unfortunately, for Wagga. There's a lot of young players that played in that group last year that have moved away to university and gone away to do other things away from the town, or the city, I should say. They've lost the experience of Matt Mensah and Carl Podesky as well, which is huge for them. They brought a fair few youngsters up, as you mentioned. I saw them in the Charity Shield on Saturday. First things first, you can't really take anything from that from their point of view. They were outclassed by a really good Canberra Croatia side that were absolutely ruthless on the weekends. They took them apart 10-0. And I think for Wagga, it was just a question of what they could get from that game and try to have a little bit of experience of playing against, as David Leonard said to me, the best team in Canberra. They won the double last year. They went unbeaten. So it's no real shame for them that they got beat quite so heavily. I think it was probably on the cards. What I'd like to have seen more of was perhaps some of their players really taking the game by the scruff of the neck and trying to lift each other. Body language wasn't great in the first 20 minutes, but it came better in the second half. They dug in, and I was really impressed with some of their players. Jacob Ocheng up front is going to cause all sorts of problems to teams in NPL 2 with his ability. Nashwan Suleiman missed a penalty, but was quite lively when he got the ball to feed Matt Stevens in midfield, I think. Was classy. And they've got young Samson Lucas, who scored a couple of goals in the FFA Cup win over Majura. None of them really got the opportunity to shine on the weekends. I think Stevens had a one-on-one close to the end, which was well blocked by Matty Gerbischer. But that's by the by, to be perfectly honest. They're not going to come up against a side of that quality in NPL 2. For them, I think pre-season they won. They beat Hamwards 3-2. They beat Albury Hotspurs 6-1 as well. So they've been amongst the goals. For them, I think their season starts this Thursday in the FFA Cup game. They'll look at Brindabella away as a game that they can win, get to the last 8 of the FFA Cup, and maybe put their name out there and draw a Canberra Croatia or someone, if they go through against Queanbeyan on Wednesday, and maybe get a bit of revenge and show what they're all about, because we didn't see it on the weekend. But I think Dave Leonard, as you mentioned, brought the young boys through. It's going to be a work in progress for him. It's not going to happen in the first few rounds because they're going to need time to gel. But it might by the end of the 21 rounds. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them up near the top 4, but it's going to be a big season for them without some of those bigger names like the Brooker brothers that were there last year, Dylan Burkray and that kind of thing.
Yeah, most definitely. I think to sort of touch on Wagga City Wanderers, obviously they were the champions last season, and kudos to them. It was a fantastic effort to see them prevail them and win the title in the shortened season last year. I think what we're not used to is when you are a successful side, you don't want too much turnover, but sometimes things are out of your control, as this proves most definitely. They've had departures for the reasons that you mentioned, Russ, that have been out of their control, and there's been a lot of change this season. So and I think it would be very easy to obviously look at the loss that they had to Canberra Croatia 10-0 in the Charity Shield and say, well, there's no way that they're going to be champions again. But like you said, you can't read into that result too much. They've got an important game against Brindabella that can really go ahead.
I was going to say,
you were going to say something.
The other mitigating factor that I should have mentioned in that Canberra Croatia game was they did lose their goalkeeper, Rob Fry, in the week building up. And I think Brad Yeomans is their reserve goalkeeper, the under-23 keeper, and he pulled out as well. I think it was the day before the game. And Liam Dedini, who went in goal, who was the hero of the grand final penalty shootout win, he'd retired after that. He hadn't put on a pair of gloves since that game. He's coaching the under-23s. And he was forced to put a pair of gloves on again. And he was absolutely brilliant. So I think he made 7 or 8 top-class saves in that game. Otherwise, it would have been a lot worse than what it was. And there's no blame attached to him whatsoever. So you imagine that they've got him as their third-choice goalkeeper. The other two must be pretty handy. And we've seen Rob Fry before. So, they're going to be difficult to score against. And I think they're going to cause a few problems going up the other end as well.
Yeah. Before Michael wraps up, Wagga, you mentioned Rob Fry. I thought he was like one of the men of the match in that final against Yoogali. He was absolutely outstanding. So credit to Wagga and Didini for stepping in, because at the end of the day, it's very difficult, when you, like you said,
you step in for a goalkeeper of that quality. Yeah.
And then you got to step in, and then the second one doesn't come in. I mean, that it just would have been a, nightmare for Dave Leonard. But best of luck to Wagga City Wanderers. It's going to be difficult to repeat what happened last year. Not because they're not good enough, but because there's so much competition in NPL 2 this year.
Let's see how they go on Thursday. Let's see how they match up against a team they're going to play 3 times in the league this season as well.
Michael?
Absolutely. Let's move on to Weston Molonglo with their coach, Ned Jeans. In the 2020 season, they finished 7th. Obviously, they started the season positively, only conceding 1 goal, which was a penalty in their first 3 games. They struggled with after injuries to Hawkins and Arden Law. They struggled to score goals as the season developed, and they weren't able to keep their defensive track record the entire run. However, they defeated Yoogali to end the season, which was a very positive result heading into the break. So they've had a lot of recruitment in the off season. Neddy's very excited about the signing of Loya Albushi from Monero Panthers under 23s. He mostly played as a striker for Monero, but we saw him play against Woden Valley as a centre attacking mid. And he looked really impactful there. So that's a positive sign. And he's a player with skill on the ball and creates a lot. So I think it's a role that will suit him very, very well in this team. Russ, is there any important additions or changes to Weston Molonglo heading into the 2021 campaign?
Yeah, you mentioned Louis from the Panthers. He's one of their visa players. I think he's from Oman, I believe. And he's one of their 2 visa players they brought in. They brought in Liam Ball as well from Narrabundah, knows what it's all about at that level. He's played there for a number of years as well. Sam McLaughlin back from a sabbatical as well. But I think it's going forward, it's going to be interesting. Andrew Sellers has scored 4 goals in pre-season. He got a hat-trick in the FFA Cup in the space of about 5 minutes, although I think they tried to steal one of the goals off him and give it his own goal. We'll give him a Hattie because he'll like that.
Yeah.
And they've got Ashley Blount as well. And Ashley Blount has been a real personality in that team. And I think what you need in NPL2 is you need strong personalities. You need people who can lead, not just on the park, but off it as well, because you often find the best teams are the teams that gel off the park as much as they gel on it. They want to play for each other. And I think that's what Ned's trying to build there. Masses of turnover, as you said. They've lost a lot of players from last season. They've got a fair few in as well, which is going to leave them in the same boat as someone like Wagga, where they've got to gel. They've got to find time to gel as well. They had a great result in the FFA Cup. They've got a massive FFA Cup tie on Wednesday as well themselves against their local rivals, the West Canberra Wanderers. And they'll love to knock them out of the competition as well. But that for them is their main focus at the moment, to try and get a result in that one. But I think going into the season, when Ned finds his best formation, like we said last year, defensively it was good. Couldn't find much going forward. Just need to add to that. And I think with his people, the players he's brought in and the players he's got in there as well, they'll do that.
Absolutely. Matt, anything to add there in regards to Weston Molonglo?
Yeah, Russ mostly nailed on the head, and you did as well when you mentioned Louis. Yeah, I saw half. I think the first half of that match, and he looked very impressive, creating a lot of goals. Like you said, he was a striker at Monaro, and I'm sure he'll mix between those two. But I thought he was very, very good creating in that match, and I thought he was a difference maker to begin with and open the floodgates for Weston Molonglo in that tie. I also like the addition of Geordie Freeman from Narrabundah under 23s. I saw him play. I've seen him play for a while, a couple of years ago as well, when I did a bit of work with FC Canberra City down there. I saw him play in those early 6 a.m. Training sessions. I saw him there. He was always a very rough and tough defender. He's very good at distributing the ball as well. And
proper no-nonsense centre-back.
Yeah.
It's what you want, isn't it?
And he's also got the Edgar Davids goggles as well, which is I love. He's got the coolest, and he's got the long hair to go with it as well. He's got the coolest look.
That's a win for everybody.
Jordy will love me saying that, but yeah, he's got the coolest look there of anyone. I love, I'm a big fan of Edgar Davids, always have been, so I absolutely love that look. 100% there. But in terms of Weston Molonglo, you mentioned it there. I called a lot last season. I saw a few of their games, and they, like you said, very good defensively. I think Arden Law, I think the one he's coming back in round 4 or 5. Ned was telling me when I talked to him before, which is very, very key for them. He's a good leader as well. And Blount, like you mentioned, he's an absolute beast in the middle of the park. He keeps everything together.
Yeah, and a second year for Ned as well, so he's got a bit more experience under his belt. He knows what it's like at this level now, so he's looking forward to it. I think they're going to go okay. And another side that will be aiming for the top 4 and pushing on if they can.
Yeah. Any last words on Weston Molonglo before we move on, Michael?
I guess just to touch on, I think they will be, considered underdogs this season compared to some of the other clubs that we've touched on, obviously previously in this preview. However, they have plenty of belief they can upset some of the big boys like they did against Yoogali last season. They also play in the FFA Cup against. West Canberra Wanderers, like you mentioned, Russ. So on Wednesday, that'll be a good encounter. So it'll be an interesting test for them, and we'll see how they go in the season, considering that, they're going to be not touted as a team looking or picked to be in the top 4, but they'll be looking to cause some havoc like some of the other teams will for those sides that are considered to be in that top 4.
Can I just mention Chris Webb as well from Weston Molonglo? He does an awful lot for NPL2. He gives me a huge amount of information from those clubs. He is the NPL2 master, and you can read a fantastic preview piece that he's written for the Capital Football website, which I've sent off to Capital Football to put on their website. It's a really good piece, very informative, ins and outs and what you can expect from NPL2. So thanks to Chris Webb, and keep an eye out for that one.
100%. Moving on to our final club that we're going to preview is Yoogali. They finished first, of course, won the league last year. Coached by Luke Santolin, they made the final in that absolutely scintillating final. That was absolutely brilliant. I'm sure you love calling that one, Russ. It was, against Wagga. Yoogali, they impressed a lot of teams last year. Let's not forget. I'll never forget when I had it. The first talk to Luke, he's like, Matt, we're not here to make up the numbers, all right? We're not here to make up the numbers. And I mentioned that several times last year, but I love that quote, and I love the fact that they did so well. And he proved that they really weren't there to make up the numbers in that regard. They probably had, and you mentioned the chemistry before, how important it is on and off the field. And I think Wagga and Yoogali probably proved it the most, considering they had already that sort of chemistry, especially Yoogali. They've been playing, most of those guys have been playing for years in their competitions, and they proved it last year in the shortened season. So for Yoogali, they mostly got most of the squad that they had last year pretty good. Luke wanted to also mention that their under 23s has been given a huge boost. They've got more numbers there, which helps them with the depth for the first grade squad. And I think Yoogali is still going to be fighting for that top 4 and possibly even promotion. I really rated them last season, and with 1 year of, even though that was a shortened year, a year of Capital football under their belt in NPL2, I think they're still going to be a team to reckon with, and we all know how great they are going forward. So Russ, any notable ins and outs?
Well, they brought in another Donadell just to make it confusing for me. They brought in young Ruben Donadell, promoted him as well to go with Isaac, Jacob, and Mason. And there's 2 sets of brothers, they're all cousins. It's a real family affair there as well, and that's what the club's built on. And you mentioned the camaraderie that they have. You don't travel 4 hours or so on a bus together and not have camaraderie. They're doing it the right way. I mean, I've been in chats with Luke Santolin since the start of the season, helping them to arrange some overnight stays. So they want to stay here in Canberra after games. They want to get a real feel to travel away and give their guys time to recover. And You mentioned how good they are going forward. I watched them in the FFA Cup and they won 6-0 against Juventus, and Mitch Bajanti got a couple, and Daddy Roach got a couple, and he's an excellent centre forward. And they did all of that without Calvin Roddy, who's their Scottish import, who was excellent last year, and Joe Priest, who's ran the midfield and was one of the best players the Riverina Rhinos had as well in their short spell in NPL 1. To put it plainly, I think they've got it all to go all the way again. They're young, they're enthusiastic, they're quick off the ball, they pass and move sharply, great range of passing in midfield, strikers who've got instinct to get in behind defenders, who've got penalty box instinct as well. We saw the header that young Roach put in. He's the smallest player on the park in the first game against Juve, scores after 45 seconds between two towering centre-backs because his positioning's so good, and then hits the bar later with a header. They've got it all over the park, and it's going to be exceptional to see them this season, and they're going to be one of the teams to beat. Not sure they'll thank us for saying that. Luke Sansalin would like his side to slide under the radar a little bit, but they've got an FFA Cup quarterfinal to look forward to and buy because UC Stars pulled out. But they're into the quarterfinals of the FFA Cup, and I can guarantee you now that nobody that gets into that hat for the last 8 will fancy playing Yoogali FC. Yoogali SC, I should say. Not FC, slap on the wrist.
That's the other club.
Yeah, I get slap on the wrist if I say that. Nobody will want to play them, and especially if you have to go away. They're champion at the bit to host an FFA Cup tie. They're really disappointed that they didn't get to host UC Stars in the last round. And I'd like to think that fate will smile on them and give them a home quarterfinal against one of the big names, and they'll pack the ground out down there, and we can send the cameras down, and we can all go and enjoy what will be a fantastic game of football at a fantastic football club.
Most definitely. I think, obviously Yoogali looked very good in their FFA Cup third round match against Gungahlin Juventus, where they won 6-0. They found it hard to organise friendlies due to their location. And you could see that on their Facebook page, actually. They're a very ambitious side that will look to improve on their already great season last year and the success that they achieved and look for promotion. I think obviously a massive note to make is their return of home matches at Solar Mad Stadium in Griffith. That's a massive plus for them. You always want to be playing in your home stadium in front of your home fans. So they'll be able to bring the community there together and bring out a full voice of support at home matches there in Griffith. Where we saw last year where they had to travel to Deakin Stadium for the final, you could have only imagined what that would have been like at their home stadium in Griffith. So that's a massive sign for them, and that will boast really well considering the talent of the other teams that they're going to be coming up against this season. So we can expect great things from Yoogali again this season, that's for sure.
It's a great venue as well. I was lucky enough to go there once for an NPL game against Canberra Olympic. I mentioned it to Frank Casho a lot because they lost 1-0. It's the biggest smash and grab I've ever seen. Olympic had about 45 chances and Riverina had one on the break. Young lad off the bench, netted in the 90th minute. It was probably one of the best nights that they've had in Riverina for a long time. And they really enjoyed it afterwards in the club. And that was with the Rhinos. This is with Yoogali. This is a much more settled environment. They've got a real swathe of backers behind them that want this club to succeed and are putting their money towards it by, putting them down here in accommodation, sending them in buses and that kind of thing. They're really pushing. And you can just imagine, you look ahead in 8 months or so, if they are in NPL 1, if they did win the league and go up, how much of a boost that would be to the region.
100%. Michael, let's so wrapping up Yoogali, we'll quickly preview round 1. Michael, what's the first match we have?
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. So we've got Wagga City Wanderers up against the O'Connor Knights, Saturday, April 10th, 2:15 at Gissing Oval. It is an interesting matchup. A lot of people will be looking at the Charity Shield score that we mentioned before and count Wagga out. But I think they'll sort of relish that perception and look to prove a lot of people wrong, and just to prove that was a one-off. And we talked about the unfortunate circumstances around the goalkeeper situation that they had, and on the other side of the coin, we'll be seeing a very, very different O'Connor outfit compared to last year. The motivation to hit this season by storm in order to looking and gain promotion. They've proved in preseason they can be strong defensively, and we already know the ability they have going forward with Josip Jadric, as you touched on before, Russ. So it'll be an interesting encounter with Wagga City going in there with no fear. They've got nothing to lose against a side in O'Connor who's expected to win this contest, I'd say. Do you have any thoughts on this match, Russ?
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Wagga City Wanderers at home is always a difficult prospect for anybody. The travel takes a little bit out of you. It's all about preparation. It's all about getting there in time to get yourself stretched out, ready to go. I think in round one, you're going to carry all your whole squad down there. You'll be surprised if there's anybody missing because everybody's raring to go. So it's a good time to go away from home to Wagga or Yoogali in round one because everybody will be up for it and champing at the bit. It's a bit harder to do it in the middle of winter and when you've had a few defeats under the belt to get yourself motivated for that kind of thing. So I think probably Knights will have too much for them on this occasion. But again, it depends on who travels. And I don't think it will be as easy as everybody would perhaps suggest based on what we've seen so far.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it will be anywhere near as easy. But I really do like the look of O'Connor for the reasons that I mentioned before. And there's probably, and we also mentioned there's probably a little too much movement at the moment for Waggas to hit the ground running straight away. So I'm going for O'Connor. What about you, Russ?
I think the Knights will take this one.
How about you, Michael, before we move on to the next match? Who do you say will go through on this one?
Yeah, I think I gave it up beforehand, but yeah, O'Connor are probably going to win this one against Wagga City.
All right, and the next matchup is Canberra White Eagles against ANU, Saturday, April 10th, 3 p.m. at Woden Park in Close. We mentioned White Eagles haven't had the best of preseason, so I'll be looking to turn that around in this first match. And of course, new coach Adam Condipedero, his first grade job, he'll be raring to go at the bit. And like I mentioned, I think they'll be really want to get a big start for them considering last year. I think this will be a very, very close encounter. I'm going to go for a draw for all the reasons I've mentioned in the preview as well. I just think it's just going to be such a close encounter. Both have had similar preseasons and they both have had the new coaches, but both sort of have similar teams that they had last year. I think it's always a close match, but I think this one will be a draw. What about you, Russ?
I think you've summed it up, mate. I think it's going to be a draw as well. I think both sides are decent. I don't think either side will really go for broke in round one. I think a draw would be probably an acceptable start to the season for both teams on this occasion, although I wouldn't count out either side winning, obviously. But I do think that they'll nullify each other. And I think the ANU probably possess more of a goal threat at the moment than White Eagles, but I think being at home in front of their crowd there, the few Eagle burgers inside them, they'll come up with a draw.
Michael?
Sure. I think for the sake of being different, I'm going to go with a White Eagles win. And I'll just place, my history of playing for the club as well as to, them getting the win as well.
Just a little bit of bias there as well. You can't.
Yeah, a little bit of bias, but we can't have 3 draws across the board.
I wouldn't be surprised. Again, any combination of result wouldn't surprise me in that one. If ANU came away with 3 points, I wouldn't say it's an upset. If White Eagles won the game, I wouldn't say it's an upset. Which is why I've sat on the fence, to be honest, and probably why Matt did as well.
Yeah, no, I'm going for a White Eagles win at the nest, as they call it. So that'll be a close game though, for sure. Both teams are quality, so that should be a good one at Woden Park.
All right, and Michael, what's our next matchup?
Our third fixture is Brindabella Blues against Queanbeyan City, Saturday, April 10th, 4:45 p.m. at Corwell. There's a lot of anticipation, obviously, that we've noted before surrounding Queanbeyan City and how they're going to go this season. And that's going to start in Corwell against Brindabella. Brindabella have gone on quietly improving their squad, in the shadows of the likes of Queanbeyan, but with a year of experience and chemistry under their belts, you don't want to count them out. They did upset Queanbeyan in the final round of the season last year. I think considering all those factors for this encounter, I'm going to go for a Queanbeyan City win because of my Macedonian heritage this time. So
more bias there. And your dad used to play for Queanbeyan City.
Sorry?
Your dad used to play for Queanbeyan City as well, didn't he?
And no,
Monaro.
he played for Monaro.
Yeah, Monaro as well. Sorry, yeah, that's right. Sorry. I keep
back in the
most
NSL days.
Australians that played for Monaro also played for Queanbeyan City. That's why I thought that.
Yeah, that's right.
Monaro's legendary Laurie Pallock. That's why I thought that, because he played for both. He came here to play for Queanbeyan City, then he played for Monaro. So what about you, Russ? What do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, I think it's youth versus experience. I think when you look at the two sides on the park, you're going to have a very young Brindabella Blues outfit that will try to run Queanbeyan City off their feet. I think it's their best bet of winning the match, to be honest. There's a fair bit of pace in that Brindabella Blues side. However, I think the firepower that Queanbeyan City have, the experience that Queanbeyan City have, I'm taking a leaf out of Michael's book. I emceed Mark Shield's wedding a few years back, so I have a bias towards Queanbeyan City if we're going down those routes. No, I think Queanbeyan City just have a little bit too much for Brindabella in terms of quality across the park. It won't be a huge blowout, I don't think, because I think those young boys will really put an effort in. You did mention last season's result as well. That might play on the minds of some of the players that were there last year. That basically cost them any shot of the league title. So they won't want to start the season with a defeat, and I'm going to go for Queanbeyan City.
Yeah. Look, I'm not going to be different. Unlike what Michael said before, I'm going to go for Queanbeyan City, but I wouldn't count Brindabella out. Like, don't be surprised if they can even snatch a draw here, because at the end of the day, Queanbeyan City also have quite a few new players. So we all know that they've already gotten on the board, scoring heaps of goals so far in pre-season, but maybe they might need some time to get together as well. But in saying that, though, I do think Queanbeyan City will have a little bit too much for them, but don't count out Brindabella. I'm going to go for a Queanbeyan City victory here. And our next matchup, the last matchup of the round, we've got Yoogali versus Weston Molonglo, Sunday, April 11th, 2 p.m, Solomon Stadium. Like Michael mentioned before, Yoogali's first league match at home in a while due to the overnight easing of the overnight restrictions for COVID. Weston Molonglo will look to rekindle the magic that they had when they travelled and they beat Yoogali the final match of the season. Weston Molonglo will be raring to go. However, I do feel like Yoogali will be just a little too strong for them. We all, considering they've mostly got the exact same squad they had last year, and we saw just the beautiful free-flowing football that they play, I think Yoogali are just going to be too strong for Weston Molonglo. However, I'm not just saying this to be cliche, but don't count out Weston Molonglo either, because they did end up beating Yoogali in this exact fixture, except it was played in Cootamundra, of course, due to the restrictions I just mentioned. Russ?
Rewind the video about 8 minutes and you'll see why I think Yoogali are going to win this one, to be honest, at home at Solomon Stadium. I think they've got a point to prove. Like you said, they haven't been there for a while and they were champing at the bit for that cup game that didn't happen. I think they're going to have too much in the tank for Weston Molonglo. As I mentioned about the trip to Wagga, even harder to go down to Griffith on the day of the game and get yourself motivated for it, especially with the way I've seen Yoogali start matches lately as well. They come out like a house on fire. They're going to be raring to go for this one. I think they've got just a little bit too much in the tank and they'll come away with the 3 points in this one.
Michael?
Yeah, I think so as well. I think there's just too many positive factors on the side of Yoogali heading into this fixture. I mean, we've obviously touched on having their first league match back at home for the first game of this new season. They're coming off the back of a great year last year. I expect them to continue that vein of form heading into this one against Weston Molonglo. So I'm expecting a Yoogali 3-point performance.
So if you're a fan of Wagga City Wanderers, Brindabella Blues and Weston Molonglo, you're going to win in round one, because we've just all tipped against you and it's not going to happen. Very, very bad at tipping.
Here comes a curse. I'm intrigued to see. I think former Narrabundah coach Jono sent us a message on Twitter. I think you saw that one as well. And he said, I think I feel a tipping comp coming up. And So we'll wait.
We might have to keep tabs on a tipping comp. So I'm interested to see how I go with the round one fixtures across the NPL one, NPL two.
Tips in the first game, let alone last week.
that's. I think it'll be for a good laugh, and I'm sure some people will point that out to us throughout the season, which always helps.
Oh, look, I mean, once people listen to this preview, I'm sure we'll get hundreds of messages going, "Hey, why did you tip against us?" And when they win, they'll be sending us messages going, "Well, you were wrong." And look, and if they want to come on and have a chat about it, we're more than happy to have them on. Anybody, any players or coaches out there from NPL 2 or NPL 1, fancy coming on the football show, we'll have you.
100%, and especially if any of us tipped against Queanbeyan City for the first match of the season, I can guarantee there's a few people there that would have been messaging me, to say the least.
Oh, look, they're quite vociferous, aren't they? Look, I think to be honest, what I'm looking forward to, I think the match of the round in that fixture is probably White Eagles ANU. I think that's probably going to be the match of the round for me. It's going to be a great tie. But what I'm really looking forward to is just to see how these clubs cope with the pressure. When the season progresses, there's a lot of players in. There's a lot of talk right now about who's going to go up, and the winner at the end of 21 rounds of football will be playing NPL 1 football next season, and they'll bring up their under 23s with them, no matter where they are on the ladder. And when you get to that pointy stage of the season, and these fixtures are going to come thick and fast, the pressure psychologically, as mentally and physically, is going to be huge on these boys and on the coaches as well. And it's something that we've mentioned before, and they probably wouldn't have had the experience of doing it before. A lot of these guys' promotion, it changes the whole dynamic to everything. Those games that you suddenly think we're playing teams at the bottom of the table that are an easy 3 points just aren't anymore. You know, they suddenly become real slogs, and the team that can grind out the results when they're not playing well in the depths of winter, as we say here, with a bit of rain, a bit of mud, and maybe a bit of snow, they're the ones that are going to come out on top. And you look at those squads, and at the moment, it's too even to call.
100%. So, as we wrap this up now, Russ, tell everyone what is coming up on Bar TV Sport, especially in the FFA Cup this week.
Yeah, FFA Cup, yeah, absolutely. We got two cracking fixtures for you this week. Wednesday night, Deakin Stadium, 7 o'clock, Canberra, Croatia versus Queanbeyan City. Myself and Frank Asia will take you through that one. On Thursday night, just 24 hours later, 7 p.m, Ipan Parking Call, I believe they're calling it now, Brindabella Blues versus Wagga City Wanderers. You can join myself and Mitch Stevens, and credit to Ryan Webeck at Brindabella Blues. I gave him the call up about 3 weeks ago to say, look, we would love to come down to Brindabella to do that match like we did with the Narrabundah game. Is there any way you can organise some sort of platform for us to commentate from? And within about 5 or 6 hours, he'd come back saying he's managed to secure some sponsorship to put some scaffolding up so that we can film the FFA Cup down there as well. It's fantastic. People like that, people like him in the football community that enable us at Bar TV to do what we do. It's people like all the coaches that I send the messages to, that, you know, Glenn Smith on the weekend that gave us a huge rundown on Bell North to help Maddie when I dropped him in it on Sunday morning to be able to commentate on these games. And, you know, we can't do these shows and we can't do this stuff for Bar TV if you guys don't continue to help us out. And we're grateful for every time you do it. And looking further ahead, we'll have coverage of 2 of the quarterfinals for you in the FFA Cup as well. So to be decided which ones. And then we'll cover both semi-finals and the final in the FFA Cup. And looking further ahead, if you want to, NPL Round 1, we'll be at the Riverside Stadium for Round 1, Canberra Olympic v Monero Panthers. And then on Sunday, myself and Matt will be taking a bit of a road trip down to Nijong Oval for Tigers FC v Canberra, Croatia, which I promised a non-goalless draw on the week on Friday with Canberra United and Sydney FC. It came back to bite me a bit because it was 0-0. That one won't be.
I'm definitely sure it won't. Michael, any last words before we wrap up?
Oh, none other than the fact that I like that you sort of talk about that story there, Russ. You know, it's always great to see the involvement of, you know, our footballing community, especially when we reach out to, I think, give, you know, these clubs as much exposure as we can, because we always want to promote the game and promote it, you know, through different areas of Canberra and surrounding regions. And I think when we have personalities within different clubs that are willing to, you know, go the extra mile, or that are willing to respond and, you know, help us out in any way that they can in order to, you know, put on put on a show or, have the ability to, set up cameras so that we can actually film and broadcast these games live, no matter where it is in Canberra or the surrounding regions, like I mentioned. It's always great to see that effort. It definitely doesn't go unnoticed, and that's obviously why you mentioned it there, Russ. That's why we love our footballing community, and it's good to see people out there who want to keep, exposing this game to as many people as we can, because it's always looking to continue to grow here in the nation's capital. So it's a fantastic effort.
It's the nature of the beast, isn't it? That a lot of the focus is on NPL 1, understandably so. It's the top level of our game here in Canberra and the Women's National Premier League as well. But it's easy to forget that in NPL 2 and below, there's club sides out there that have got fantastic stories, fantastic club people, progressive clubs like Brindabella Blues, like everybody we've mentioned tonight in NPL 2. And below that in the State League, Madura FC, I'm sure we'll do a story on them at some stage during the season. Bell North, that we have got real eyes on the prize, and they want to become an NPL 2 side. Yarrabundas that are still out there, Yass, Gundaroo. There's footballing stories throughout Canberra and the region that we're very proud of as people of this football family in Canberra and the ACT. And if you've got the stories out there, we want to hear from you, and we'd love to have you on the show.
We absolutely do. Matt?
100%. Thanks for that, Michael. Thanks for joining us today. Great stuff. And of course, thanks, Russ. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm sure you're absolutely knackered after yesterday. So I appreciate you sitting with us through this long preview.
4 matches on the weekend, 1 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, 1 yesterday, and a couple more to come. So yeah, I might go home and have a sleep.
That's a very good idea.
Hopefully the dog doesn't wake you this time.
Him or the kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Next will be our NPLW preview. Jeremy McGann will be joining us back for that one. He's back in the commentary box as well this season, and we're all looking forward to the NPL2 kicking off as well. Like I said before, as soon as I started watching NPL2 last year, it just caught me immediately. There's such a great energy about it, and we all can't wait for that to happen. So, like I said, NPLW will be up next week, and we just can't wait for football to start. Thank you very much.